Welcome everyone to Sherwood City Council work session for September 21st, 2021. We have two topics that we'll try to cover, and we're going to reverse the order, flip what we have on the agenda and start with residential design standards.
Julia, does that work? Mayor, I apologize. I thought we were going to reverse them, and then Julia just told me we might flip them back again. So,
and that's fine. We were going to keep the Oregon Street one super brief, so we have time for the residential standards.
Then never mind.
Okay.
I was misled. Not an hour ago.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, Jason and I touched base, and I'm just going to introduce the topic. Jason's going to go over real quick. And the reason why we felt like we could do this fairly quickly is that this is the first of several touch points you're going to have on this. And so this is not a one and done type of thing. So we really just wanted Jason to show you where we're at right now, kind of what we're thinking, and we'll be coming back and the next couple months, certainly before the end of the year, with more information. But we wanted to show you what we've got and get any gut reactions, and then move quickly on to the residential design standards. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jason.
Thanks, Julia. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. So I'm just going to go through this quickly. I know we haven't touched in on this project for quite some time, so we're just going to give you an update on the project status. We'll go through the project webpage. I'm going to go through some of the project goals, and keep in mind these goals are in flux. They're just been noted by staff, so everything you see here is up for discussion. And then we'll end it with rendering of the 60% design that the consultant put together. That's a couple of minutes long. It's about 2.5 minutes long. So I'll get going here and just share my screen of the project webpage that was just recently updated. And hopefully everybody can see that.
Yes.
Does everybody see Oregon Street improvements? All right. So all of the counselors and the general public can access this webpage here. It kind of explains where we're at with the project. We've hired Kittleson and Associates to complete the design plans. They're working with Wood, who is the stormwater designer. The project will improve, modernize, and widen the Southwest Oregon Street alignment between Langer Farms Parkway and the roundabout at Murdoch Road. And then another project goal is to provide retroactive stormwater management for the upstream basin, which goes all the way up to Snyder Park. And I think it's around over 25 acres. So it qualifies as a regional retrofit project with Clean Water Services. So that's a project goal there. Project design is currently at 60%. And the deliverables provided to date are all listed below. We're not going to go through those all. I'll show you the first couple. And then you're more than welcome to visit this website and provide comments to me at any point in time, preferably by the end of the calendar year, so we can wrap up 90% design plans. So this work session is really just to give you a check-in on the project. We've got some great exhibits here that you can review on your own time. Feel free to provide comments tonight. We don't have to resolve everything now. Again, we're going to be back most likely in January with a right-of-way resolution, and that's kind of discussed here on the webpage as well. This is a formality that we do for our large project, so we'll bring in an exhibit that kind of shows the impacted properties. You'll adopt that, and then that will give us a chance to check back in on the project and any questions that you have tonight or throughout the next few months. This kind of describes what's going on. 60% design. Opinion of probable cost is $6 million for a fully loaded CIP project, and we'll keep an eye on that too. I know costs are increasing, every day these days. So I don't know if we want to program in 6 million or 6.5 million. We'll keep an eye on that. If you want to review the detailed engineer's estimate, it is included down here under supporting documents. Again, anytime send your comments my way. It doesn't have to be in a public forum. I think we all live in Sherwood, so you're more than welcome to hit your comments up anytime to me. Go over a strip map of the project, and this is, again, preferred alternative is a little bit strong. That's the alternative that the design team is recommending to you. If there is something here that you don't like or that is questionable, they have questions about, it's open for discussion. Oh, I lost my screen, sorry. Where did that go? Sorry about that, everybody. I lost my web page.
Uh-oh.
What do you guys see right there so far?
Nothing. I mean, just the Zoom
Okay.
squares, not any shared screen.
Yeah, I think I stopped sharing. Give me about 30 seconds here to fix this.
So quick question, when did we update the website with this project?
Today.
Early today, about 3 o'clock. Well, I seem to have lost it. All right, let's go over the project goals. How about that? You guys see that screen there with the highlighted information?
Yes.
Sure. All right, project goals here to complete, incorporate a large-scale regional storm retrofit project. We discussed that. That's going to provide stormwater treatment for the road widening project in the upstream residential areas. We're exploring partnerships with CWS so we can take care of the developable lands near there. We're going to be back here in January. We can discuss storm more at the next meeting. That's way too much to discuss now. Another goal is keep project costs low to offset rise or uncertainty in construction costs. And one of our recommendations through the traffic report is to not provide a center turn median along the unconstrained and undeveloped frontage, which runs east-west. And the reason is we've got the constrained areas along the railroad tracks, and then there's some wetlands up to the east, and it just adds additional costs. And our traffic study says that left turn lanes are not warranted into the industrial lands there. Keep right-of-way impacts on the private property to a minimum, and then no impacts to railroad property due to the cost. And they do not do permanent perpetual easement, so keep costs low. Another project goal is design and construct a backbone utility system that accommodates the city's needs, future expansion, and considers for potential for technology advancements. And really, we're trying to do something different here, and that's provide a backbone system that has at least 4 conduits that have power injected into it that accommodates streetlights, and it can work for the small cell advancements, SCADA, and things like that. So a little bit different than our typical design, but this is a backbone resilient alignment. So that's one of the project goals. Streetlights that are aesthetically pleasing, unique to Sherwood, the most dark skies initiative friendly. And with that, and this is another one that's open for discussion, we're recommending the option C.
Everything is open for discussion, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I told Julia too. Everything is open for discussion. So don't think that this is the final design here. We're recommending basically the same lights that are on Pine Street with the fluted Westbrooks, and moving those Cobra heads that are installed along the industrial lot over to the roundabout at Murdoch. Of course, another goal, consider development of the adjacent undeveloped properties, including the future public works facility site. We're also going to provide marked and signed crosswalks at all of the cross streets. So it's not going to be push button RRFBs, but they will receive the minimum, marked crosswalks and advanced signage, which is something that we haven't done typically on our capital projects. Is all of this, you'll see this in the rendering that's coming up in a moment as well. And then we want to have a project that at all phases is a shovel-worthy project, a shovel-ready project, and then ready to go to bid. And additionally, we want to provide landscape strips and street trees on both sides of the unconstrained unconstrained segment that runs east-west between the railroad tracks and the roundabout at Murdoch. So those are some of the project goals.
So Jason, can you go ahead and show that flyover video, and then just we'll get any initial thoughts, comments.
Yeah, see this? Are you guys able to see this video here?
No.
This is just generally a waste of time.
Wait till you see it. It's pretty cool.
You can see it now, Jason.
What's that?
We can see it now. I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
So what this is showing is basically a flyover of how the 60% design would look on Oregon Street, correct, Jason?
That's correct.
Do we have access to this video somewhere?
We tried posting on the webpage, but I can get it uploaded for you guys through OneDrive. I'll work with IT to make sure you guys get a copy of it. It was a little bit over our size. Yeah.
Yeah, that strip map thing is like 10 megabytes. It's pretty big. So yeah, I bet the video is even bigger. The draft traffic report is 11 megabytes. They're pretty large files. Oh, that's way cool.
Isn't that neat? That's why I wanted you guys to be able to see it.
Can we do a flyby the mayor's house like this?
So that's showing what's there today. And
that's
what will be
cool.
there.
Oh my gosh.
And we can we can come back in January and kind of explain all the nuances here, because when you look at it, you probably have some questions about, well, why don't the bike lanes continue through the railroad
Right. I was
tracks?
just going to ask that. On the
And
north side.
there's reason for it, and we could take up a lot more than 15 minutes explaining why it is that way, but
what I liked about this presentation, regardless of whether or not there's changes or tweaks to the actual design, is really showing you how much better and useful it's going to be once we have a design. It will be very pedestrian friendly, with landscaping and nice Westbrook lights.
And where does it stop? Does it go all the way to the roundabout, or just where that?
it stops right there. Yeah, we didn't
Right about
want to
there.
get into that whole roundabout needs ADA upgrades and all sorts of stuff.
Okay.
So we stopped short there and just matched to keep project costs a little bit lower. But what you see there is basically the 60% design that we proposed, and we'll get that file to you. I really think that's the best way to kind of review the project, is to watch that video a few times, and everything that's on the webpage matches what you see there.
Hey, Jason, just to
And if you have any
confirm,
questions now.
you were talking about stopping short of the roundabout though, and the video, I think it shows the north side, the sidewalk, which thankfully there's a sidewalk there now. Does that go all the way to the roundabout and connect to
Oh, yeah.
Murdoch?
Both
Okay.
sides.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. And you had mentioned no need for a center turn lane on Oregon Street. I mean, are there concerns about the potential of a future public works site there and having large trucks potentially blocking
that
the
was
road,
my question
moving in
too.
and out?
Yeah, and we're going to be looking at off-street pullouts there. We do realize that our public works folks are going to need areas to pull out, but we feel there should be enough area for them to do that, similar to the storage facilities there north of the pallet yard, where they have long driveways to pull in. But I think that stuff's going to be flushed out through our Business Oregon grant, and we can revisit the council with that in a couple months too, to kind of the details on where access points are going to be. And we also have traffic counts going up at the current public works facility through quality counts so we can verify those, that we don't have too many left turns wanting to sit there in traffic and wait to get into what we're planning in the future.
Well, I know
Yeah,
it's a simple win, but thank you for the sidewalks, continuous sidewalks from the fire station to Baker to Murdoch. I appreciate that. That's long overdue on that street. So thank you for that.
I have zero comments because there's just not.
Yeah, so
Well,
I mean, this was the orientation, the introduction of what we've got as far as deliverables and where we're at right now. And we will absolutely have, either one-on-one conversations with you guys
we'll be back.
Okay, yeah, and or a council work session.
So we're not advancing to 80 or 90% at this point, right?
Right. Where this is basically just sort of refining, reviewing, getting feedback, and then
No, you can't.
not now, over the next couple months. So yeah, we're not making any decisions or moving forward tonight.
Okay.
It's
Thanks,
just
Jason.
direction. Yeah. All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
See you guys in a couple months
Or if not before.
Thank you.
or before.
So next up on your agenda is the residential design standards, and I think Joy is queued up to give you guys her presentation.
Yep. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Oh boy. Can you see my presentation?
It's working to get up there.
Okay, great.
There it is.
Yes, excellent. Thank you for confirming that. Good evening, everyone. Joy Chang, Senior Planner with the Planning Division. Tonight, we are at the last council work session on the residential design standard. Council has specific comments and questions for the Planning Commission to consider. And the purpose of tonight's meeting is to go over those particular items. Your input tonight will help keep this project timeline on track. And tonight's presentation is going to consist of updating the councils on the Planning Commission's recommendation tied to residential design standards, landscaping minimum standards, garage functionality, variances and adjustments, and of course, obtaining input from council on other specific topics. So the residential design standards, as a reminder, the overall intent of the design standards is to have homes that look high quality and maintain the overall small town feel of Sherwood. To assist in reviewing these design standards, staff has drafted 2 residential design checklists for council to consider as a reference points. These were emailed out to you as far as the examples and the proposed codified language. The checklist itself helps in regards to how we would implement this at the time of building permitting. The first example that you have in front of you is the original design standard that was recommended by the Planning Commission. In both of these checklists, both the original and the second option require 3 required standards. The first element is entry location and orientation. The second element is garages and off-street parking areas. And the third is windows or entrance doors. So just keep that in mind that all these 3 elements are going to be required for both options. This original one is asking for 5 additional elements, very specific one standard from each of the subsection. So in this particular subsection, porches would require 1 element, roof elements would require another, and window elements would require another, 3 of them. And then the last remaining 2 elements out of the 5 could be from any of those 3 I just mentioned, in addition to building materials and other elements. So the total design elements that we are going to be requiring for both of these options are a total of 8. So the second option in front of you, as reiterating, the first three are still required like the original, but the additional five, it consists of a menu list. This will allow for more flexibility in regards to the developer being able to choose the design elements from the list. And again, in addition to the top three, they would be required to do five. So again, it would be identical where we would find 8 design elements. So these are the elements or the checklists are side to side. And just to reiterate, so the Planning Commission did like the original recommendation, the one to the left of on this slide. Majority of the commission liked that. However, some requested direction from council on considering 1 or 2 elements from the subcategory instead of requiring 1 element from each of the subcategories to add a little bit more flexibility. So the difference, the key main difference between the two definitely is the second option allows for lots of flexibility where the development community could just pick from a menu list of the 5, in addition to the original 3 that's required for both. So we'll take your comments as we go through these examples, because I want to reflect exactly how we would apply both of them based on real life examples. These are homes that have been developed and gone through the building permitting process 2016 and 2017. And I just did the checklist on both checklists to see if they meet it. And this example definitely meets all of the requirements, and that's why it's all green. Oops. This example number 2 also meet the design element. I wanted to showcase this also because it is a single level home. So just for the variety of homes that are available in Sherwood. And then my last example is consistent with a 3-car garage. And again, I redid the calculations, and both checklists did also pan out. At the Planning Commission, there was a question in regards to if the garage met the 60% standard that was required. And for this particular example, based on the site plan, it did meet it.
How?
The lot width itself is 50, and the garage faces, the elevations of the garage, the width is 30. So it is literally
the
at 60.
calculation, I thought the calculation was supposed to be based on the width of the building, not the width of the lot.
The way that the standard is written, it is, let's see. It says the width of all garages of the street facing elevation shall not exceed 60% of the total width of that elevation.
Yeah, so that's not the lot, that's the building.
All right, okay, I misread that then. My apologies one more time. So that should be an X. So it does not meet the garage design standard. So this particular one should be an X along with the garage design standard here, because it is one of the first 3 key elements.
Was that because, sorry, was that
That's
because?
fine. Yes.
Oh, can you just explain why it doesn't meet it? I understand it's the width of the building and not the width of the lot, but go back to that 3-car garage.
Yeah, so the standard basically says the width of the garage on the street facing elevation shall not exceed 60% of the total width of the elevation.
Not exceed, okay.
Yeah, of that elevation versus the width of the lot itself. And I was measuring it based on the width of the lot. which was 50. So I do apologize. So one of the key elements is a 15% threshold of windows and door openings. And those same buildings that I just showed you, as you can tell, range from 15 to 26%. And the Planning Commission settled on the 15% on windows and doors. That includes trim and shutters in their calculations. Because the original calculations that I had, some of them were not meeting the 15% requirement. And so with the addition of trim and shutters, all of these three examples met the minimum requirement of 15%. The other item that the Planning Commission settled on is secondary elevations, because there was a conversation in regards to any elevation that can be seen from a public right-of-way should have some type of minimum standards. And the Planning Commission settled on requiring 10% standard for window and door openings for secondary elevations. Again, that also includes trim and shutters if they do apply. And based on these particular examples, only one met that requirement, but the percentages did increase once I did start calculating the percentage, including the trim and shutters. Further discussion is still needed tonight if there are going to be additional design elements that we're going to be requiring for these secondary elevations, like the primary elevations. So we will definitely continue that conversation in a second. The rear elevations is showcased here on this slide is because sometimes there could be lots that are double frontage lots, meaning they have access at the front and the back from a public right of way. So these are rear elevations, and as you can tell, the rear elevations can definitely meet the 10% standard that is proposed by the Planning Commission.
Hey, Joy, a quick question.
Yes.
So for a side elevation, how do you determine in a clear way whether it's in the public, it's viewable in the public right of way?
If it's adjacent to a public right of way, and we've also even had a conversation tied to public access ways, like trails that could be going through the subdivision. We've also considered those as elevations having to be satisfied. We consider those as secondary elevations that need some type of treatment. So the key is public right of way or public access way.
So if a home is on the inside of a radius, and it's aligned with the beginning of the radius, on the other side of the radius, it's about 40 degrees of total radius, you would be able to see that side of the house. Would that be considered a secondary elevation for this?
Yeah. Yes, it would be.
Okay.
Like in a cul-de-sac, or definitely where I can see these are in the cul-de-sac, definitely on corner lots and double frontage lots. These are the ones that would have the secondary elevations reviewed.
We just want to make sure that language is clear and objective, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not sure that would actually apply to the cul-de-sac though, because the lot line itself on a house in a cul-de-sac, the lot line doesn't abut the street at all, the public right of way of all. It's a
that's why I was asking the question.
My interpretation of what all of our discussions have been at Planning Commission up till now is it would not apply in a cul-de-sac scenario. It would only apply if a road or a sidewalk or a trail or an access way ran, along the lot line.
So
But
in a
we can
cul-de-sac,
clarify that.
yeah. definitely, because when I see a cul-de-sac, there are those at the very beginning of the cul-de-sac that could, it truly does depend on how the cul-de-sac is laid out, I should say.
Well, no,
Um,
I would say it depends on how the code is written, right? If we're saying if it's visible from the public right of way, then yeah, that would bring a lot of stuff into purview. If we're saying the side lot line, runs adjacent to the public right of way, then no, that would clearly not apply to a cul-de-sac home.
all right.
So, I don't know what the intention of PC was. I thought it was that those would not apply, but we could clarify that.
Yes, and we will be going to the Planning Commission before their hearing, October 12th. So that is another topic that we could definitely address with them. So thank you for that. It's been noted. So thoughts and comments or questions. I do have very specific questions. I can ask them now.
Let folks say whatever they might want to say
Okay.
without being prompted.
I wanted to weigh in real fast. I like the 15% window coverage on the front, but I was noticing in that second house that we saw, the smaller one on slide number 8, I'm assuming that the door front, which doesn't face the street, that was added to the calculation. That's what it looks like on the next slide. And then I was noticing though on slide 12, how the back of that house is so much more appealing than the front of that house. It's got more windows. I mean, not much, 0.5 more, but and it barely made that, it just squeaked over, what was it, like 15.92. So I guess it's actually, I don't know why. It's maybe because it just seems so flat. The other two houses are so much, have that 3D pop outs. It's a little more, it's more interesting. I know we can't be too extreme, but it's such a difference, just 5%. But I don't know where on that second house, the smaller one, I don't know where they would put a bigger window or I don't know where they would put more glazing on the front of the house. So
I think of like on that one, the thing that struck me when we were looking at this in Planning Commission was you see a lot of times the house with this design, there'll be like that kind of like round, like porthole kind of wooden thing in the like second level there in the dorm, like a vent kind of thing, or something decorative that kind of breaks up the monotony of it. And even that would like significantly make the visual better.
Yeah, the flat, it's so flat. I just don't know how specific we could get, but
So from my perspective, I support the Planning Commission's comment that the original checklist is the way to go. I also like the 15 in the front, the 15 in the back, if it's a double frontage lot, and 10 on the side, if it's along a public right-of-way, trail, road, whatever. That
One call out there is
agreeable with
I believe the current recommendation is 10% in the back if it's a facing, not 15. So it's 15 front, 10 back, 10 side, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joy.
That is correct. Yes, it would be considered a secondary elevation, so it would be 10 for both side and rear.
All right.
Yeah, I agree. I like the original Planning Commission recommendation.
So this is probably not going to be a surprise, but I like the opportunity to have flexibility. So I like the second checklist. Personally, I think you're all doing a great job in putting this together. I'm just not a fan of standards, to be honest with you. But if I were to vote on one of those, I'd say second option.
And I am in favor of the original as recommended from Planning Commission as well.
Hey, Doug and Joy, can you help us understand why PC, I mean, I know that's original, and then you must have come up with the second option, and then they talked about it. What did they think about? Was it too complicated, too many options, too many checkboxes? What's their hesitation about the second option?
So I can generally identify or summarize that there were a couple of planning commissions that thought that to add a little bit more flexibility in regards to the original, instead of requiring, as reflected on this particular slide on the left-hand side, the way that the standards are written, you would have to choose one element from porch, one element from roof, one element from window. They were suggesting to try to add a little bit more flexibility, as what the development community was asking for, was instead of asking from one of the subgroups, can we maybe ask for only one from A, B, or C, or two from A, B, or C that they can choose from. And then the remaining 3 or 4 elements can come from any of the choices.
And Joy, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't both of these options really came from Planning Commission? The original was sort of their original, and the second came up through the course of conversation. Is that correct?
I actually disagree with that. But my recollection is the second option came from staff. And then the Planning Commission, took it up at that point and has had robust discussion around both.
So staff, through various, the Planning Commission, we've met several times. And one of the comment was, is there, can we be more flexible in some manner? Because they were asking, can we base our elements based on percentages? And we, as far as staff, were indicating that some of these elements can't be calculated in percentages. And we've also heard from the public from, as far as written comments, and also through the open house, requesting some form of flexibility to these standards. And so staff did take it upon themselves and saying, okay, how can we add flexibility so that it's, again, the objective, the elements have to be clear and objective, that it's something that we can measure. And that's where the second option was provided.
So in a new neighborhood, and we have these design checklists, how do you legislate against cookie cutter homes so that you don't have 5 homes in a row that all look the same?
So in a brand new community, we do have a standard for housing variety that we, the development community at the time that they actually submit their preliminary approval for the subdivision, they can also submit tentative housing plans, and they would identify which homes, the elevations all have to be different in regards to their proposal. So we do have a standard built in. It's just not reflected here as far as in these slides.
Thank you, Joy.
And as a reminder, these standards are going to be implemented at the time that they submit building permits. So with every building permit, there should be one of these that come with it. There's going to be some that are different just because we have a little bit different standards for townhomes, and we're going to have a different standards for later on for cottage clusters too. So they're going to be very specific to the type of housing that's being submitted for building permits. So what I did here tonight was option 1. Majority of you liked the option 1, what the Planning Commission recommended. Is there any consideration in modifying it to reducing the required amount of?
So this is, I'm sorry, this is Tim. I hadn't weighed in yet.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm in favor of option 1 too. I actually liked having a little bit more stricter standards around this stuff for a lot of reasons. And the window percentages were fine with me as well.
Okay, excellent.
And this is Sean, I'm in the same boat.
Okay. Excellent.
So sorry, I got cut out, but I'm back now, so I missed a bit. I'm in favor of option one. I believe more of planning commission is as well, but there's certainly been good conversation around both. And I think to answer a question that was asked earlier, if it wasn't answered while I was offline, planning commission wanted to send this to us for us to weigh in on option one versus option two, because they wanted clear direction from council, because there was kind of a toss up, if you will.
Gotcha.
And I'd like to throw just one more comment, and then I know Kim needs to speak. My comment is the reason I like option one, and it sort of goes along with what Tim said, is because the mayor asked about cookie cutters, 5 houses in a row. What if a particular builder decides it's cheaper to not do any roof elements, so they only do whichever elements are the cheapest. And at least with the first option, I feel like we're going to get a little bit of a variety of things, instead of someone putting up a bunch of houses that that go for the because we get it, it's expensive to build houses, but and I just think too many choices, and maybe it complicates it. So anyway, that's my comment. Okay, Kim, you're up. Sorry.
I already weighed in. I said option one.
Okay.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
And can I just a general comment on option one? In some of the standards, we talk about, design details, like for the garage doors and stuff like that. Do we need to add something that says it's visible from the street or something like that? Because that gets a little vague, right? What is a design detail on a garage door, for instance? Just throwing that out there. I just want to make sure it's clear and objective.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that anything that counts, has to be visible, or we're counting it for nothing, essentially. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So noted. Okay.
And one question, tile shingle roofs, are we just talking about normal, the asphalt sheet roofs that we put on all the homes in Sherwood? Under roof elements, number 3?
Yes.
No, that's not. I don't think that's what you meant
Sorry.
to say, Joy. If it's the roof element of tile shingle roof, that's a very specific. That's like California or New Mexico tile roofs, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yes, so it's above and beyond what is typical. All right.
So do you have other questions that we didn't
Well,
talk about?
the very last question that's tied to this is we have a consensus in regards to the 15% window, definitely the 10% secondary. The question that I wanted to pose to you all is that should we require additional design elements added to these secondary elevations?
And when you say secondary, you're talking about the sides and the back.
Correct.
So as it stands now, the proposal would only require the 10% glazing and trim, and none of the other elements here would be required, is what you're saying.
Correct.
What do you think, Joy?
Since it's a secondary element, we're already requiring a 10% window and door trim shutters. I don't believe that it's necessary, just because from the example that I provided as far as the side elevations themselves, this was the only one. This example was the only one that met it, and you can just see how many windows there are.
So I apologize, Joy. So my question was, what is your opinion on additional beyond the one?
Right. I was saying no additional requirement on the side or rear elevation, on the secondary elevation.
Is that because, Joy, by getting to the 10% windows, you're already going to be getting more than we're currently seeing? Is that your thought process?
Yes, that is correct. And majority of these windows are going to have trim and also some type of shutters so that they can get to that 10% minimum.
So that actually brings up my suggestion. I mean, if you look at the list of elements that we're requiring on the front, obviously porches doesn't really apply. Roof elements doesn't apply beyond what is already going to be handled by the front. Garage obviously doesn't apply unless it's the garage, unless that's the garage side. But the one thing that I would like to see required would be either trim or shutters. And it'll count, you'll kind of get credit for both ways, right? You just said most of them would probably have to do it anyway. So let's just require it, because I think it looks like, you look at the side of the house where it has trim, and like my house is on a corner lot, and the side of my house that faces the street has trim around the windows. And when you look at that compared to the back of my house where there's no trim, it's a substantial visual difference. So that's what I'd like to see added.
Hey, Joy. So
Yes.
do you think 10% is too much? Do you think it would be 5% would be better? I mean, you said nothing, but I'm not crazy about the house that has 3%, glazing on the side. I'm okay with the one that says 5% or the 7 or 7.5, but I'm not crazy about the one that's 3%.
I think the 5 looks terrible.
Well, if you're going to put another window in, where's it going to go? In the hallway or?
Well, just to be clear, we're talking about when the side of the house is along a public right of way, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Originally, staff recommended 5%, but the planning commission is moving forward with the 10.
10, okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy with what planning commission has come up with.
What did you think, Doug? I thought I heard you say yes or no. I couldn't hear you.
I look at that 5% one, and all I see is this massive wall.
Yeah.
Like it just, that's what, and then that 3% one's even worse. But I don't know. I mean, I like the 10%, but I also think a way around that is, to Joy's point, is you can add the shutters and the trim, and if we require, like, even if you looked at the, maybe if we said shutters or trim or a bay window, some people have those on the side of their house, right? If you had one of those 3 elements required, then maybe we could lower the percentage to 7.5 or something. So
but the shutters and trim count towards the 10, Doug.
Right. I know that.
Yeah.
I know that. I'm just saying, like, if you look at that 7.5 one, like if that had, shutters and trim on it, would I mind that look? No, it will look fine. If it doesn't, then I think it looks bare. So I'm just trying to strike a balance here. But
yeah,
I like Doug's idea of adding shutters or trim as a second element on the secondary, and they count towards the 10% total glazing.
On
So
that
you'll get
side.
a little bit less than 10% of glazing, but they'll put trim or shutters on it as well, and it'll make it look better. So you'll end up maybe with 8% glazing, but you also get trim and shutters.
And once again, this is a street facing side. That's why we're doing this, because it's facing.
Correct.
What happens between 2 houses is not really a big deal.
Nothing, whatever they want.
We don't care.
Yeah. Okay.
That's correct. Okay, excellent.
I like that idea as well.
Okay.
So I'm being mindful of time, and we've got about 10 minutes left before the council meeting, and there's quite a few things to get through. I guess I want to
Just keep going.
Okay, we'll just keep plugging away, and okay.
All right, let's get to development standards tied to minimum landscaping. Council requested the Planning Commission to further evaluate this standard. And again, the Planning Commission did do that. And the way that the standard is currently proposed is percentage of total lot area. The commission recommended that instead of the total lot area, that would include the back, the side yards, for the standard to actually just be applied towards the front yard instead of the total lot area. So I do have examples, the same lots plus one additional one. where I calculated the total frontage, which is basically to the front of the house. And then I took away all the paved areas that are typical in regards to driveways and pedestrian connections to the main door. It shows here this prime example, the landscaped area is 52%. The one on the right is 43%. The image on the left here is a 3-car garage, but it's a tandem 3-car. So it is only a 2-car garage here, while the one on the right is a true 3-car garage that you guys have all seen an image of. The second, these examples identify 48% of available landscaped area. And the one to the right is a corner lot. And we're showing 50% available landscape area.
What percentage is PC suggesting?
They
Front?
They did not have a percentage, but they suggested that only consider the front yard. Unfortunately, I didn't have this analysis available to them, so they couldn't provide a recommendation. So one of the things, this slide is, these are the things that, what should we consider in regards to landscape material? The way that the code is written right now is native evergreen, deciduous trees, shrubs, evergreen, ground cover, and perennial plantings. But it's silent, tied to bark, rock, or concrete pavers. So that's one thing, is what do we consider landscaping? The materials. And then the other standard is we could either provide 1% requirement, have 40% of landscaping, or a range 40 to 50%, or don't provide a percentage, but require everything excluding X, Y, and Z. Like the example I said, front yard must be landscaped, excluding paved driveways and paved pedestrian paths.
Doug?
Yeah, I think I'm happy to see option 3 in there, because I was thinking about this one since last planning commission meeting, and I came up with a very similar idea, which is, or the same idea essentially, is that it should be limited to the driveway and the walkways, and everything else has to be greenscape. So I like that. I think having a hard percentage, what we've seen when looking at a variety of weird lots, is that it's impossible to come up with the right number. That would not require then variations at some point down the road. And then I think a range is too open to manipulation. So I like the third option myself. I don't think we discussed that in planning commission though. Did we, Joy? Didn't that come up since?
No, it did not.
So I like the idea of only regulating the front, as planning commission has suggested, and then kind of kick it back to PC to further refine it. The third option sounds reasonable to me. Require everything excluding X, Y, and Z. So the sidewalk, driveway, in front of the garage doors.
Swales.
Bite your tongue, young man.
Well, we have cases where the swale is already on the lots. Right?
Yeah, we've seen it.
So existing
Yeah.
swales.
Yeah. Keep in mind, this only applies to new development, this design standard stuff,
Yeah.
or significant remodels.
Which
Oh, with this third option, paved driveway and paved pedestrian path, is there any fear that people would be very creative with their pedestrian pathways and make them much wider, or take up much more of the front yard, or meander through their front yard, or do we care about that?
I think we can handle that through code language.
If you can define it right, otherwise kick to something else. And then define, I like pointing out the, concrete pavers and rock is not greenscape. Bottom line, you don't want parking, all of a sudden people parking side yard to side yard.
concrete pavers can be designed to handle large vehicles, so that you could all of a sudden have Case Point cars parking.
Right.
Well, we do have a shortage of parking.
That is
Just
true.
kidding.
So I personally have rock in my house as far as like river rock in my front. And it is a design element that I considered. But you would not, as far as part of the landscape materials.
I
Just in the
mean,
back.
personally, I would look at bark and rock and like that kind of rock as being landscaping. But if
Me
you're
too.
talking about someone extends their driveway, 8 feet with concrete pavers, then that's a different story, or their walkway or whatever, or builds a patio in their front yard with pavers.
Yeah, and
I
think-
agree. A lot of people have
From a-
bark and a lot of people have rock. Not
Yeah,
that
I-
fills their whole front yard, but that fills like a flower bed or fills,
Mhm.
so.
I think there are some people that want to move away from lawns, just from an environmental standpoint, and prefer something else. So I think that counts as design.
Yeah, and I think we
Refer
should
back to
support
planning
that.
commission and define it better.
Okay.
I think what we're hearing is the desire to not have things that you can easily park on be considered landscaping materials. So
Yep.
fair,
Well
yeah.
said.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. So this came out last time we met in regards to design standards for garages. So just as a heads up, the Sherwood building official did identify that minimum or maximum garage sizes are not in the building code themselves, but designers use common construction standards when planning the size of garages. And so these are the examples that we found where a one-car garage, the minimum width is 12, the depth is anywhere from 20 to 24, and the door width is 8. For two-car garage, the range is again width 18 to 20, depth 20 to 24, and door width 16. And a three-car garage, 26 to 28, width, depth 20 to 24. And typically it's a single door, 8 feet with a double door width of 16, like the example we had before. So what staff has done is
What did the PC have to say about it?
they thought it was fine in regards to the proposal.
Of which numbers? With what depth and what width of those three? Is this what it is? This is what they recommend?
I don't believe that there was any true changes in regards to it. Anyone else recollect differently?
I think what they had seen was a range, but we took out the range to just be the minimum. So like the 18-foot two-car garage minimum width, what they had seen was 18 to 20 feet. And so we had Joy take out the ranges, but otherwise what you see here is what they saw. Correct, Joy?
That is correct. And there is also the concern that was brought up by council before, as far as these areas need to be functional. So this very last sentence saying that the vehicle parking areas shall be functional, furnaces, stairs, etc., shall not be located within the garage designated parking areas.
Doug?
Yeah, I'm good with this. I don't remember. I think my recollection is the same as Julia's, but I think these minimums seem fine to me.
And this is Tim, just getting back to that clear and objective language. Let's make sure that we define parking area is that minimum, 12 by 20, 18 by 20, or 26 by 20.
Yeah, and that if there are furnaces or stairs, then that would mean they would need to make it either deeper or wider, correct?
Right. Correct.
I agree to define that parking area, make sure that's very clear.
Okay, we could definitely tweak the language so that it is clear. Any more comments before we move on? No.
And just to comment for the general public on this, the reason we're interested in this is the state requires us to count garages as parking spots to meet the required parking on off-street parking requirement. So we want to make sure the garages are functional for actual parking.
Correct.
Yep.
All right, I only have two more topics and we'll just address them now. There was questions tied to adjustments and variances. Council requested that the planning commission considered to allow for adjustments, but not to allow for variances. Planning commission did do their consideration, and they suggested instead of not allowing for variances, allowing for both types of modifications as far as adjustments and variances, but possibly lowering the percentage and change. So adjustments typically is 10% of the standard. They were recommending allowing for 5% instead. For variances typically is up to 20%. Now they're suggesting possibly allowing 10%. But also taking consideration impacts to staff is suggesting that council also takes in consideration impacts to irregular shaped lots or environmental constraint sites that typically are the ones that adjustments and variances are usually requested for.
But it's important to note a developer will buy the dirt for less because it has whatever issue. And then their game is to try to squeeze an additional lot wherever they can. So I'm a big proponent in not altering key things like side yards and rear yards. I mean, the rear yards at 20 feet are nothing already. Doug?
He must have to keep his.
You keep calling on me. Oh, my
Your hand is up, bro.
Oh. It was up from a long time ago. I'm like, why do you keep calling on me?
I wouldn't call on you if your hand wasn't up.
I'll let someone else weigh in.
I want to give you respect for putting your hand up. So
I just had a question. So adjustments or variances, those are case by case, right? Approved by
Staff.
Mm.
Typically, yeah, for a class B variance, because a class A variance is above the 20% threshold, and the planning commission would actually see that.
And there's
So I
still
think that-
criteria that have to be met. It's just a staff level decision instead of a planning commission level decision.
And I think I dug into this at our last PC meeting, which was kind of the aha moment for me, but correct me if I'm wrong here, but the biggest difference is the class B variance would require public notice and the adjustment does not.
That is correct.
So if you want to follow planning commissions and cut these in half and do instead of 2010, do 10 and 5, but not make the rear yard or interior side yard eligible, then I'm supportive. I want
Keep in
kids to be
mind-
able to play on something in the back.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind that you're talking on a 10% adjustment to the side yard. You're talking about going from 5 feet to 4.5 feet.
I
It's
know.
meaningless.
I'm being a stick in the mud. I'd rather have them, I'm supportive of exterior side yard variance, but not interior side yard variance. Because exterior side yard, I think current setbacks are 15 feet or something like that. 15 or 20.
So I have a question on the rear yard
There-
setback. How is that measured? Like if you have a lot line on the back that is not parallel to the house, and it's at its deepest, it's 20 feet, and its shortest, I'm just making this up, 8 feet. How do you measure that?
We actually have a definition on how you would measure an irregular lot. Because we had a PUD in front of the planning commission.
Denali, the first Denali.
Yes, and I could pull up my code and tell you if you.
I can tell you it's generally a line that's 10 feet. Basically, you draw a line 10 feet long, so if it's a triangle, you get to a line that's 10 feet long and that becomes the rear lot line that then you measure your rear setback from.
And that line has to be parallel to the front yard
Yes.
lot line.
Or the
you
longest
draw
lot
a
line.
parallel line 10 feet long, and then wherever the 10 feet where the ends of it touch your two weird angle lot lines is where you determine to be the rear lot line. It works.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, that right there deals with irregular shaped backyards, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
I don't think we need,
Because all we're talking about is what this impacts is it impacts the footprint of the building. So alter the footprint of the building, don't alter the functionality of the site.
I think one of the big things about the garage setback, the face of garage setback, and concerns about the current variance allowed is that can get you to the point where an SUV won't fit on the driveway, right? So if you imagine a 20-foot setback and someone adjusts it down to 16, now you have certain cars that won't actually fit. And so that was, I think, one of the big drivers of wanting to reduce that variance from 20% to 10.
Right. So if on your point, then if you're doing the variance goes from 10% and the adjustment's 5%, then the face of the garage, the max you could get is 2 feet reduction.
Right. You could reduce it down to 18, and I think pretty much every vehicle fits in that. Yeah. I mean, unless you're talking about a delivery truck or something, which is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
I would be in support of that, having those percentages down. I agree. I'm not fond of adjusting the side yards at all. I think when we talked about this first time, we mentioned a city to the north on the other end of Roy Rogers Road. We don't want our houses to be stacked together like those. I just don't ever want to go down that road. I really don't.
Just to add a little bit of color, this the very issue was discussed at Planning Commission, because I think there was some discussion around not allowing the variance at the side yard level, the variance or adjustment at the side yard level as well. And I think, what it came down to is at a maximum, we're talking about 6 inches. And, there could be scenarios where, you're talking about a 3-inch discrepancy across 6 houses in a row, right? Do we really not want to allow that tiny amount of flexibility? And so I think that's kind of what went out in the end at PC.
Again, all we're doing is it's just impacting the footprint of the building. They just have to agree to move the footprint of the building.
No, I get it.
And I think, didn't somebody say this would only be like an irregular sized lot? I mean, we do this on one lot because it's like the last one that won't fit. It's not all lots get 6 inches off, right? That's not.
I mean, they could come in and request that across every lot. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they have to have justification, correct? I mean,
okay.
It's not necessarily a super, super high bar, but they have to have a reason for asking for it.
Okay.
Very low bar.
Okay, so that my hand's up. So that was my question, was if we allow these adjustments and variances, how often do you think people are going to come ask for them? I mean, if they're allowed to have them, why not ask for them?
Well, how often do they happen now?
Yeah, just to be clear, we already do allow them. And we don't get a lot of them. I think the question is whether or not we want to continue allowing them with the design standards and with the infill that's going to be coming. So I think the concern is that you're likely going to see over time more requests because there's the possibility for more infill. Is that correct?
That sounds logical.
Over time.
Yeah, that's my view on it as well. Because with HB 2001, we can expect to see a lot more infill, and we want to make sure we preserve the character of the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
The question for new developments, we had also talked about not allowing PUDs to adjust these even further.
Yeah,
Is that-
that's next slide.
Okay.
Good point. Doug?
Yeah, I thought my suggestion here would be, let's cut the percentages in half from 20 and 10 to 10 and 5, and let's make side yard adjustments not eligible.
Here, here.
I'd be good with that.
Yeah.
Booyah.
Yeah, I'd love to exclude rear yards as well, based on the weird process of finding a 10-foot whatever across the back.
But that's just on irregular shaped lots, right?
Again,
I'm good with leaving the flexibility on rear. I think 2 feet's reasonable, maximum 2 feet.
I am too. That's fine.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
I would, and the impacts to irregular shaped lots, I really don't understand how that would be applied. I would just remove it.
What do you mean?
I think that comment may have been there. Again, Joy, you're the one that created this, but just keeping in mind, if you got rid of it entirely, that there could be impacts to irregularly shaped lots.
I think the 10-foot parallel line rule that you brought up, Julia, solves for that. Anyways.
The other alternative would be to make it a higher level variance that requires a public hearing. I'm not proposing that. I'm just saying, throwing that out there as a possibility.
Well, the variance language, to get the variance, if we change the variance to 10, adjustment to 5, the 10% variance still requires public hearing.
I mean, if they wanted something above and beyond, well, I don't think the 10% requires a public hearing. It requires public notice. Doesn't necessarily require a public hearing. I think if they wanted something above and beyond that in this last bullet point, then I think we would want to have a public hearing. But I'm open. I'm just throwing something out there. I don't even know if that makes sense.
I go back to what Keith said earlier. Once the rules are in place, the property value is going to be based on the number of lots with those rules, and it's already going to be built in.
Yeah,
so I'm not as worried about it.
We don't have to make it easy to turn around and squeeze another one or two lots.
And if it gets to the point where parcels don't develop because of this, then we can relax the rules. I'd rather relax the rules down the line than end up with bad results because we didn't start strong enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I want to make a real fast comment. I was perusing the Tualatin City Residential Design Standards, and their rear glazing requirement on a single family home is 12%, 10% if you have one of these residential wall design elements above the minimum, and their side corner lot facing the public street is 6% or 8%, 6% if you have something cool on the side. So we're not even as strict as our neighbors.
Well, we're a little stricter on the side because we're saying 10.
Well, on the side. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
All right. So if I heard correctly, reducing adjustments to 5%, Class B variance to 10%, and not allowing any adjustments or variance to side yards. Is that the consensus?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I heard.
Yes.
Right. All right. Thank you. We'll move that forward then. And the last couple of slides that I have, basically other council requests adding usage of family related to housing type description, and also the call-up option. So the next two slides, basically, we're able to do it by redefining what family is. And Josh, our city attorney, helped in regards to making sure that this is still doable. So we would define it as any number of individuals living together, regardless of familiar or non-familiar relationship.
Perfect.
So that is moving forward.
That's what HUD uses that. So I think that's fine. Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent.
Next.
So
And
just a question on that. So any number, I mean, I know I'm being ridiculous here, but that could be 30 people living in a single family detached.
We can't regulate that.
We're just not
Yeah.
allowed to regulate it. Okay.
Yep,
Or it could be
That-
one.
Or it can be one.
correct. Yep. Yep, that is correct. Yep. And then the very last one, again, Josh provided all of this language and we're gonna, is part of the proposed amendments that allows for council review.
Great. Next.
Um,
And then Joy, there was the question about, I think you had that on the slide, but you might have added a slide
sorry.
about
PUDs.
reviewing the PUD standards regarding what can be done in a residential PUD, kind of getting to Councilor Rosner's comment about in a PUD, we don't want these standards to be, the setback standards to be revised even greater through that process.
So these 3 items will come back for further discussion on.
That is correct. Just because.
And why not PUD element be part of this process?
Say that again?
So code language, when you bring the residential design standard up, you have that language along with revisions to the residential PUD chapter.
So the
Please.
plan unit development itself has a process that requires architectural pattern book. So they have their own particular design elements that's tied to it. And when a building permit comes in with a PUD, they're subject to those elements that were approved based on the architectural pattern book.
So I think though
That's not that wasn't even
setbacks.
addressing my point,
Oh,
Julia.
okay.
Yeah, so that's what I think what we're referring to is the setbacks and lot sizes and that kind of stuff for the residential PUD. So I think what we need to do is draft something with the, the council, the comments that council discussed that and wanted the planning commission to review it. Staff can draft something that the planning commission can chew on, and then
I'll be part of the same review that we're doing with this.
Right.
I disagree with that. I feel like we have this thing on the 10-yard line and I don't want to slow it down. I want to get these residential design standards passed as soon as possible so they become into effect as soon as possible. And we can work on the residential PUD stuff. But I don't want to put our work on pause on design standards.
Why would this pause anything, Julia?
Because they haven't.
well, we haven't done notice. So I don't know that it. Sorry, my dog is barking. That's why I'm letting him in. I think we can look at whether or not there's a simple short-term residential. We're not talking about revising the whole residential.
Oh, very simple, easy, short,
Right.
quick.
So I think we
Same
can.
notice as we've done everything else.
Right. So I think
Let's not build a mountain here.
I think what we're trying to accomplish here is we don't want the PUD process to be used as an end run around these standards. That's all.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the roadway stuff and the swale stuff, those are different conversations, unfortunately, but.
Okay.
Frankly, if what staff proposes for the PUD does, derail or cause people to go off, then we can talk about setting that aside. But I think we can draft something that is a short-term quick fix to address the concerns that I've heard from some of you guys.
Awesome.
Okay.
Greatly appreciated. Thank you.
The last 2 slides, basically, we've received community comments since the council briefing from the development community and the general public. And what we did hear from the development community, again, is it's too prescriptive and requested additional flexibility. There was question tied to land use vesting rights, was also identified. And we did receive written comments from the general community, concerns with the additional design guidelines. And just to summarize that, they felt that they were arbitrary design rules based on tastes, and these should be based on scientific reasons for a healthier environment.
Cool.
So that, never mind.
Thanks, Joy.
Okay. All right. And so we were trying to do Robin Hood Festival this weekend, but as you all know, it's been canceled. So the first hearing again for the Planning Commission is October 26th. And if necessary, a second hearing would be November 9th. If there is no second hearing, the goal is for City Council to hear this on November 16th for the first hearing, and then December 7th for the second. That pretty much finishes my presentation, and here's all my info. If anyone has any questions, and we have a designated website for this, and you can find it there. That is all that I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joy.
Thanks, everyone.
So with that, we will close or end the city council work session. And we'll have a city council meeting start in